Most liked comment gets pinned. Good luck.
Here's Clark. Wow! You bet! From beyond the logo! And a little point afterwards.
Stop scrolling right now because this is not just another flashy sports headline trying to grab attention. This is a straight-up power move. NBC is relaunching Sunday Night Basketball, and instead of playing it safe, they went bold. They put Caitlin Clark dead center at the main desk in primetime at Madison Square Garden, while the Lakers face the Knicks under the brightest lights in sports. She is not popping in as a guest. She is not doing some quick halftime cameo.
Lakers, Knicks, Staples, LeBron James, not on the floor. Sitting out one more, but what a game it was.
She is sitting next to Hall of Fame legends, shoulder to shoulder, stepping into a role that screams something bigger than just analysis. This is not about nostalgia. This is strategy at the highest level. NBC is not just bringing back a show. They are reshaping who gets to control the conversation around basketball. And with one sharp move, they made it clear that the future of basketball media is not on the way. It is already here. Now let's break down the business side, because this play is seriously smart. NBC has the same issue every legacy sports network is dealing with right now.
Took place in December of 2026. Caitlin, I'm just curious because you said that this moment right now is one of the biggest moments the WNBA has ever seen.
Their core audience is getting older. The fans who never missed a pregame show in the 90s and early 2000s are still watching. But that base is not growing. At the same time, there is a massive wave of young fans who live on their phones. They grew up watching highlights on social media, following athletes directly, and catching sports through TikTok clips and fast Twitter threads. They do not care about fancy studio graphics or throwback theme music. That stuff does not move them. They need a real reason to tune in. They need a face. They need someone they connect with. And right now,
let's get back to Nike, though. I gotta ask some questions because I'm such a huge sneaker fan. You said that you're wearing the new kicks.
Caitlin Clark is that person. Look at what she has done in just 2 years. She turned regular season Iowa Hawkeyes games into national events. Random weeknight matchups suddenly felt like championship nights. She shattered records that had been sitting untouched for decades. Records people thought were locked in forever just fell. During her final NCAA tournament run, the women's tournament became the most watched basketball event in the country. Men's or women's. That is not hype. That is numbers. When she declared for the WNBA draft, it turned into a primetime spectacle. Cameras everywhere, millions watching, energy through the roof. Then came her rookie season with the Indiana Fever and everything exploded.
All of women's sports, I think this is one of the biggest moments we've ever had.
Arena attendance jumped like crazy. TV ratings for games she played in surged by hundreds of %. Merchandise sales went wild, jerseys sold out, tickets vanished. She did not just move the needle. She snapped it in half, built a new one, and pushed that too. Here is what some people still do not get. Her appeal is not boxed into women's basketball. That is old thinking. Her fan base is massive and mixed. NBA fans follow her. College football fans know her name. Even people who barely watch sports recognize who she is. That kind of crossover power is rare in any era. NBC understands this, down to the smallest detail. They saw it during her college run. Remember when her record-breaking game was placed behind the Peacock paywall? When Clark pulled up and fired and it went in, people who had never paid for a streaming service signed up just to watch her. That is not normal. That is not even common. For a college athlete, that is almost unheard of. So when NBC had to choose the face of their billion-dollar NBA relaunch, it was not some long debate in a boardroom. It was obvious. You go with the person who pulls eyeballs from every direction. You go with the one who shifts culture. You go with Caitlin Clark. Now let's talk about how they rolled this out, because this was not random. Every detail felt planned with precision. They did not just book her for some quiet Tuesday night game that nobody would remember. They did not test her on a low-stakes matchup between two teams near the bottom of the standings. No, they threw her straight into the fire. Her debut hit on February 1st at 6 p.m. Eastern, live from Madison Square Garden. That is the Mecca of basketball. That building breathes history. And the game, Lakers versus Knicks. Bright lights, big brands, no room to hide. You had LeBron James possibly making one of his final appearances at MSG as a Laker. You had Jalen Brunson leading a Knicks squad fighting hard for playoff position and a home court advantage. Courtside seats were going for over $1,000. The energy in that building was electric before tip-off even happened. This was not a soft launch. This was not dipping a toe in the water. This was NBC planting a flag at center court and saying, "We know where the game is headed." They put Clark right in the middle of that moment, not on the sidelines, not in the background, but front and center. And they did not stop there. NBC did not hold anything back for this debut. They rolled out every heavy hitter they had. Bob Costas showed up. Michael Jordan appeared as a special contributor. Yes, that Michael Jordan. They placed Caitlin Clark on the same broadcast night as Jordan. Let that sink in. That is the level of respect and confidence NBC showed when relaunching their biggest sports property since reclaiming NBA rights under the league's massive 11-year, $76 billion media deal. The last time NBC aired an NBA Finals game was back in 2002. Nets versus Lakers. More than 20 years of silence. And when they finally returned to the hardwood, they chose Caitlin Clark to help kick the door wide open. That is not random. That is positioning. Clark joined the Basketball Night in America desk alongside Maria Taylor, Carmelo Anthony, and Reggie Miller. From the second she appeared on screen, it did not feel awkward. It did not feel forced. She fit. She talked about the mystique of Madison Square Garden and admitted it was her first time attending a Knicks game there. She said the building carries a different kind of buzz, a different energy you can feel in your chest. She broke down how star players rise in big moments. She discussed an NBA player she studies closely and analyzed parts of the game with sharp detail. You could see the Hall of Famers next to her nodding along. That is when you know it is real. Her Indiana Fever teammate Sophie Cunningham watched from home and later said on her podcast that Clark was a natural up there. Aaliyah Boston, another Fever teammate who also works as an NBC contributor for women's college basketball, posted on Instagram asking, "What can't you do?" That question hit for a reason. But here is where things got spicy. Before the broadcast, NBC set up a modified game of horse between Clark and 20-year NBA veteran Jamal Crawford. Now, if you know Clark's mindset, she does not handle losing quietly. Later on the Let Her Shoot podcast, segment director Sarah Chani shared what happened behind the scenes. Clark lost the first round and instantly told producers, no, best of 3. Nobody had planned a best of 3. That was not in the script. Clark simply refused to leave a camera set with a loss attached to her name. That moment said more than any pregame breakdown ever could. She is not acting competitive. She is built that way. Chani also shared something that stuck. She said she judges athletes by how they treat the crew behind the scenes, the people without cameras on them. And she said Clark is someone you could safely meet as your hero and not walk away disappointed. That kind of praise does not come easy. Then came the numbers, and they backed everything up. The Lakers versus Knicks matchup pulled 4.5 million viewers across NBC and Telemundo. That made it the most watched Sunday night regular season NBA game since 2002. Excluding opening night and Christmas, the Knicks won 112-100, and the entire broadcast felt alive from start to finish. The energy was different. Days later, NBC president Rick Cordella was asked if viewers should expect to see much more of Clark on the network. His answer said plenty without overcomplicating it. He pointed to her relationship with Xfinity and Comcast, called her part of the family, and made it clear this was not a one-off. This was the start of something bigger. Her next scheduled appearance is March 29th in Oklahoma City when the Thunder host the Knicks. But anyone watching that first night already knew This was not some trial run. This was an audition she already passed. Now picture what this looks like on screen moving forward. The desk is stacked. Vince Carter, 6 feet 6 inches, one of the most explosive in-game dunkers the sport has ever seen. The man who leaped over a 7-footer in the Olympics, it was nothing. Tracy McGrady, one of the smoothest scorers ever, a player who could get buckets from anywhere without breaking a sweat. Carmelo Anthony, mid-range master, jab step technician, one of the most prolific scorers in league history. And sitting right there with them, holding her own, is Caitlin Clark. You have Caitlin Clark, the woman pulling up from the logo. It is a simple layup. The woman whose court vision is so sharp, she throws passes that make NBA point guards blink twice. She sees plays before they even open. That is rare air. Now picture the conversations about to happen on that desk. Absolute gold. Imagine Caitlin asking Melo to break down his jab step, and Melo actually getting into the details, showing the footwork, explaining how he reads a defender's balance before he makes his move. That is masterclass stuff. Imagine Vince Carter leaning in and asking Caitlin about her range, honestly curious about how she generates that kind of power from 35 feet out. Imagine T-Mac and Caitlin trading notes on creating space off the dribble, comparing his smooth NBA rhythm with her fearless WNBA attack. That is not fan fiction. That is real basketball talk at the highest level. These are the exact types of moments NBC is setting up. And every single one is built for the internet. Every clip, every exchange, every second where a Hall of Famer looks at Caitlin Clark and you can see that respect in his eyes, like, yeah, she really knows the game. Those clips are gonna hit social media and spread in minutes. Now let's talk about the tease that has everyone buzzing. Producer Sam Flood hinted they are hoping to have Caitlin with a basketball in her hand on set. That sounds simple, right? But why even mention that unless something is cooking? The theories are everywhere. Maybe she does a live shooting demo. Maybe she breaks down her mechanics in real time, showing hand placement, balance, and follow-through. Maybe Reggie Miller steps in and they turn it into a quick 3-point shootout right there in the studio. That would shake the room. But the theory catching the most heat is this. Caitlin might debut her Nike signature shoe live on national television at Madison Square Garden. Sneaker communities are already talking. Nike has been quiet about the release timeline. Almost too quiet. And if you think about it, what better stage could there be? Millions watching. The Garden as the backdrop. The relaunch of a legendary NBA broadcast. That is how you create a moment that lives forever. It would be one of the biggest live shoe reveals the sport has seen in years. Of course, there will be critics. There are always critics. Some will say she is too young. Some will say she does not have enough broadcast experience. Others will argue she has not earned a seat next to Hall of Famers. But respectfully, that take feels outdated. Caitlin Clark has been in front of cameras since high school. She handled national attention early and never looked shaken. She did a Manning Cast-style alternate broadcast during the Final Four. And was not just solid, she was sharp, funny, and insightful. Not good for her age, just good, period. She stepped into the Yankees broadcast booth and held her own. With seasoned pros, she has done countless interviews, press conferences, and media appearances without awkward pauses or forced lines. She moves in the spotlight like she belongs there. That is not luck. That is preparation and confidence. And let's be clear about her basketball IQ. It is elite. She is not going to sit there tossing out surface-level takes. Caitlin reads defenses the way a quarterback reads coverage. She understands spacing, timing, angles, and passing lanes with depth that even NBA coaches respect. That kind of mind on an NBA desk? That is fresh energy. Because if we are honest, pre-game shows can get stale. The same retired players, the same stories, the same predictable breakdowns. Caitlin brings something that cannot be copied. She is an active elite player whose style mirrors the modern NBA. High-volume threes, pace and space, creative playmaking. She is not analyzing this era from memory. She is living it, and beyond ratings, beyond viral clips, this move. matters for the sport itself. For years, the NBA and WNBA have felt like separate worlds, separate broadcasts, separate audiences, separate conversations. Now you have one of the biggest faces in the WNBA sitting at an NBA desk, breaking down NBA games with authority and real credibility. That is not just smart TV. That is a bridge being built in real time. It sends a clear message to the casual NBA fan who might never tune into a WNBA game. It says this woman understands basketball at an elite level. And if she can break down LeBron's pick-and-roll reads on a Sunday night, maybe her own games are worth checking out too. That is cross-promotion at its finest. Not forced, not awkward, just smart. And the ripple effects could lift both leagues for years. Two paths running side by side. One clear vision. What really stands out in all of this is not just the broadcast deal. It is the business mindset behind it. Caitlin Clark is only 22 years old. She is just getting started in her professional playing career. And she is already laying the foundation for a media empire. Most athletes wait until retirement to think about what comes next. They play for 15 or 20 years, then scramble to find a second act. Caitlin is building that second act right now, while she is still in her prime, while the spotlight is blazing, while every door is wide open. That kind of foresight at her age is rare. It also says a lot about the team around her and her own awareness of how fast these windows can close. Opportunities like this do not stay open forever. She is moving with purpose. Now look at the synergy. She is already signed with Xfinity, which is owned by Comcast. Comcast is the parent company of NBC. That is not random luck. That is strategic alignment. NBC gets the biggest draw in sports media right now. Comcast activates its investment in Caitlin through its own broadcast platform. And Caitlin gains access to tens of millions of viewers while stacking real broadcast experience onto a resume that already includes record-breaking performances and major endorsement deals. She is not just cashing in on the moment, she is building long-term equity. Every minute on that NBC set is an investment in a career that could stretch decades beyond her playing days. That is how modern branding works. The old athlete model was simple and linear. You play, you retire, you hope a network gives you a shot in the studio. Maybe you get lucky, maybe you do not. The new model, the Caitlin Clark model, runs on parallel tracks. You grow your playing career and your media career at the same time. Each one fuels the other. Every sharp segment she delivers on NBC makes more people curious about watching her with the fever. Every electric performance on the court makes more viewers want to hear her break the game down on Sunday night. That cycle builds momentum. Once it starts spinning, it becomes powerful. And beyond the contracts and ratings, there is something human here that matters. Caitlin Clark grew up in Des Moines, Iowa. Not exactly the center of the sports universe, she fell in love with basketball by watching it on TV, studying it, imagining herself in those moments. Now she is stepping onto the other side of that screen. There is a young kid sitting somewhere right now watching her analyze an NBA game and thinking, maybe I can do that too. Maybe I can play. Maybe I can lead. Maybe I can sit at that desk one day. That kind of representation carries weight. It reaches beyond numbers and trends. February 1st, Madison Square Garden. The lights will not just shine on the court. They will spotlight a shift. Lakers versus Knicks. Hall of Famers at the desk. And right at the center, Caitlin Clark stepping into primetime with a microphone instead of a basketball. On the surface, it looks like a debut. Underneath, it feels like a realignment of influence. A reset on who shapes the basketball conversation in this era. When the cameras go live and the music fades, pay attention. Watch who commands the room. Watch who drives the discussion. Because the biggest moves in this sport are not always made on the hardwood. Sometimes they are made in the narrative. And when that night wraps up, the question will not be whether she belonged there. The real question will be who the game belongs to now.